Alright, now in this lesson we're seeing more solving, but this time we've got a trinomial, and much like the last example I showed you, this one's not quite equal to 0 yet. So if it's not equal to 0, you have to make it equal to 0 so that we can use the zero product property. So I do that by subtracting 2 to the other side, and that will give me 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 equals 0. And now that I've gotten it equal to 0, I want to go back and factor. So again, our steps were set it equal to 0, step 2 is now factor, and then solve. So when I factor here, I use the magic x method because this is a trinomial, and there's not a perfect square trinomial. So I take and multiply the 2's to get 4, and it's going to be a negative 4 because it's negative 2 times positive 2. And then you have 3 on the bottom, so that means I'm going to get positive 4, negative 1. And then again, remember that you're supposed to divide by the 2x, so that I divide by 2x for both of them. And so that allows me to reduce here to 2 and 1, which means my first factor is going to be x plus 2, and the second one does not reduce, so I get 2x minus 1 equals 0. And now that I've gotten it equal to 0, I factored, so now I just have to solve. Okay? So I solve by setting each one of these equal to 0, which means break it up at the multiplication in the middle. So I get x plus 2 equals 0, and I get 2x minus 1 equals 0. And then you solve for x in each one of those equations. So in the first one I would subtract 2 from both sides and get x equals negative 2 as one of my solutions. In the second equation, I add the 1, and that gives me 2x equals 1, and then I need to divide both sides by 2, so 2x equals 1, and then divide both sides by 2, and I get x equals 1/2. And that's your second solution. So the two solutions that you get for this equation are negative 2 and 1/2. So if I was to write it in a solution set, the lab might be looking for that. It would be x equals negative 2 and 1/2 in brackets. Okay? Now, this is the last example I've got for trinomials. And this actually isn't really a trinomial, but there are 3 terms. It'll turn into a trinomial once I have to rewrite. So this is going to be a little bit of a longer problem because I've got some simplifying to do. I really want this problem to start looking like this one, or at least being equal to 0 would be even better. So I would like it to be equal to 0, and I also need to FOIL what's on the left-hand side. So I cannot solve until I've got this thing equal to 0 and it's set up like the zero product property where it's something like this equal to 0. So I've got my work cut out for me on this particular problem. So the first thing I need to do is FOIL the left-hand side. So I multiply my 2x times my x to get 2x squared, and then 2x times 1, which gives me my 2x, and then I take my 1 times my x, which gives me x, and 1 times 1, which gives me 1. Now on the right hand side, I'm going to go ahead and distribute the 2 to make 2 minus 2, and then the plus 6 comes down, 2x, plus 6 comes down, and then I combine my 2x's on the left hand side to get 3x, so 2x squared plus 3x plus 1 equals, I'm going to combine the 2 and the 6 to make 8, and the negative 2x to be in front of that. So now I want to make it all equal to 0, so I'm going to move everything to the left-hand side. So I'm going to add 2x, and I'm going to subtract 8. And this gives me 2x squared plus 5x minus 7 equals 0. So now that I've gotten all that work done here, I'm going to solve like I did on the last problem. So now it's ready pretty much like it was here after I made this equal to 0. Okay, so I'm just going to factor and solve now using factor using magic x and then solve using the zero product property. So I'm going to erase and move this up now. Alright, now that I've rewritten it, we're going to solve using magic x to factor first. So I multiply the 2 times the negative 7 to get negative 14. And then I put my 5 on the bottom. And I work through my factors of 14 to get 5. And that's, of course, going to be our positive 7 and negative 2. And once you get that, you need to divide the 7 and the negative 2 by your 2x. So divide them both by 2x. And these will reduce to be 1. The left-hand side does not reduce, so that gives me 2x plus 7 times 1x minus 1. And that is now equal to 0 because it was equal to 0 before. So this equals 0 follows us down. And now I set each one of these equal to 0 at the break in the multiplication. And that's going to give me 2x plus 7 equals 0. And then x minus 1 equals 0. And then you solve each individual one by subtracting the 7. That gives me 2x equals negative 7. And I divide by 2. And that's going to give me x equals negative 7 over 2. And on the right hand side, all I have to do is add the 1, and I get x equals 1. So my two solutions, I got negative 7 and positive 1, solving using the magic x and then the zero product property.